And welcome back, everyone, to Who Would Win. Today's Who Would Win comes from us from Grant. I always mess up the middle part, but Grant Dialgo, who asked the question, who wins in the fight, Hancock or All Might? And look, if we're looking at these characters at their peaks, it's difficult. Now, I know someone's going to go in the comments and say, Hancock's going to smack All Might around. This isn't even a fight. He's got no weaknesses. He's super strong. He's invulnerable. Blah, 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 blah. Everything he said is technically true. Well, maybe not the smack him around part, but or not even fight part. But like in terms of like he doesn't have any set weaknesses. That's true. He can do things All Might freaking can't. He can actually fly. He is in fact straight up bulletproof. He can survive in space without issue. Like he does have plenty of feats in terms of at least what we see in the movie that All Might just doesn't display. But the problem here is we don't know what his actual limitations are. We don't know what his pure limitations on strength actually are. We don't know how fast he actually can move, what his actual durability limit is. If he stood under a nuke point blank, would that do a damn thing to him? There is just no evidence to say one way or the other in the film. The only thing we have to go off of is the film itself and the evidence, and we can extrapolate at least a little bit of that. So we know he can move extremely quick, like kind of not true speedster quick, but kind of just speedster quick. We know he can fly, which All Might can't do. And his biggest traits are his strength and his invulnerability. His strength, the biggest strength feat, if I remember correctly, we saw was him casually, and this is the thing when I brought up the Homelander fight, is that he casually through a humpback whale. Humpback whale weight. Oh yeah, mass is around 66. Oh, well, hold on, let's do weight. It says 66. They weigh about 25 to 40 metric tons, which is about 50 to 80,000 pounds. To give him the best benefit of the doubt, let's say it was a full-grown whale at 80,000 pounds. I don't think it didn't look like it, but it was, let's just say, full-grown whale. So he casually tossed 80,000 pounds, no problem, which means his peak is a much higher than that. In terms of at least just lifting and throwing. Striking is a different thing. Like we talk about strength, we got to be careful because what you can lift, what you can pull, what you can push, and what you can strike are different in terms of how you use your body and your muscles. Roughly speaking, there's an equivalency, but they're not the same functions in terms of how your body works. You might not be able to hit with the same force you would use to, say, lift something. That's just not how that works. But that being said, lifting and throwing something, that does go towards punching, at least to a certain degree, because now you're actually throwing motion into the equation. So if we assume that a full power punch from him is much stronger than, say, 80,000 pounds, and then we can even double it and say 160,000 pounds, around 80 tons. 80 tons. Around, I think it's 800 tons? Am I right on that? No. What? Am I right on that? 8,000 tons. Nope. 80 tons. 80 tons. That's what that should be, yeah, because, no. Got a zero on there, 20. No, yeah, it's 80 tons. Why am I getting my math messed up? Again, realistically, we don't have a firm answer. If that was a casual lift, he has to put more effort into the strongest stuff. He probably is hitting with enough force to level buildings. Easy. There is, however, one other thing we see when it comes to their strength and interaction is that when him and Charlize Theron are fighting, their fight is actually kind of affecting the weather as a whole. Like it's actually creating like twisters and things along those lines. Funnel cloud. Somehow them being near each other and fighting is actually screwing up the weather. Like either forcing the weather to become bad or there's mysticism involved. Because we just don't have a firm answer to what they are, by the way. Whether they're magical based, whether they're aliens. They've never actually stated what they truly are in terms of like a species. But the problem there is that was done with those two together and fighting each other. That wasn't one of them just doing their thing. We had no evidence to suggest that one of them on their own could do that at full power. No. And trying to just assume anything is giving Hancock, I think, a little too much credit at that point. But then there's his durability we take into consideration. Now, we never see, again, the full extent of his durability, but we do know several things. One, high-caliber missile, gunfire, explosives like grenades, don't phase him. Blades don't work on him. And he can survive. He can crash land into the ground like a meteor, not feel a thing. And we know he can fly up into space and back. Not super, not instantly, but definitely he can do it within a decent amount of time, certainly. So we have to assume his durability is higher. He could probably take standard missiles to the face without too much difficulty. We also know he's fireproof because he put out a fire. And that one YouTube is that he goes to get chocolate, like an ice cream, in his burnt clothes. My ass was hot. So we do know that he is exceptionally durable, exceptionally strong, very powerful. The question is this: if we're going with Prime All Might here, Prime All Might, who we know is around 50 to 60 times stronger than the All Might we get in the modern era in the show after he gave his quirk to Midoriya. And we know this for a fact because he says, with Nobu, it would have taken about 5 or 6 punches to put that guy down in the past. But here it took over 300 blows. That's easy math right there, which means at most, he is about 60 times weaker than he is at his peak. So the question is, what are some of the best feats we've seen from All Might at that point, either after giving up his quirk or right beforehand? Because that was very shortly after giving his quirk to Midoriya. So like any feat you saw probably at the beginning of the show is, I think, a justifiable feat. So speed-wise, I don't think he's fast enough to match Hancock in pure speed. I'm not saying he's slow. We know he can kind of pseudo-fly by like throwing his fists out, using his power to create air currents. We know that. But he's not Hancock level speed. Then there's durability, and that's the thing that's really going to bite All Might in the butt here a little bit. Because even against a weaker opponent physically, like All for One, by all accounts, is a physically weaker opponent, even with all his quirks. But he was still able to really severely damage All Might. And a Prime All Might nonetheless, too. That's problematic, especially for this fight. But again, reflexes are faster than normal speed, so All Might could probably react, at least with his fists, in time to Hancock. What does give All Might an edge here is his raw strength. And I mean that legit and sincerely, his raw strength. Because we've seen the fact that just at the beginning of the series, and then when he fought All for One in the rematch, with his raw strength, he literally could affect the weather. And that was him weakened by 60 times. He literally punched the sludge balloon so hard with a shockwave that it literally caused the clouds to just create rain. He literally punched All for One so hard, he created a twister around him, like literally affected the weather. And now you amp that by 60 times in his prime? Hancock hasn't displayed strength on that level. He just hasn't displayed. The only weather changing feat that compares to something like that is when he was fighting Charlize Theron, and they were doing that unintentionally. And even then, if they weren't, you might say, well, yeah, they were doing it unintentionally. That shows they're more powerful. Not necessarily. They weren't. They disappeared shortly after their fight. And there's 2 of them fighting, which means you have 2 powers clashing at once. Whereas All Might can do it on his own with a punch. That's a big difference. Now, Hancock technically should have the better fighting experience, right? I mean, he's lived longer than All Might. He's far older than All Might. But the problem here is that All Might actually has been fighting villains more often than Hancock has. Hancock has never actually really gone up against opposition ever in terms of like an equal opponent fight. like someone who could match him in terms of power and like speed and all that and durability. Like, he's never actually done that to the best of our knowledge. Save Charlize Theron, but that is a very unique scenario in that case, and that's not something that's normally supposed to happen. So I look at it like this. I'm not saying All Might would go down immediately from any shot that Hancock gives him, but even Prime All Might's going to struggle against hits as hard as Hancock's. But surprisingly, in the raw strength department, All Might does hold the edge, I think. And if he clocks Hancock, look, if Charlize Theron can hurt him, and that's the thing, them punching each other, they are comparable to each other. Therefore, I mean, technically she says she's stronger, but still, he's like he felt the hits that she like landed on him. And if All Might is much more powerful than he is on raw physicality, if he lands a good shot on him, he could probably knock his ass out, especially if he's still hungover. And All Might actually is probably the better fighter between the two, if we're being honest. But Hancock still has, I think, the speed advantage, and he's still going to hit hard. Really, this is going to be who gets the first knockout blow. And I mean, I don't mean just first blow. I mean the first knockout blow. And if I'm going to be the betting man, I am actually going to go with All Might on this. Hancock, if he doesn't take All Might seriously, which unfortunately I think is a real possibility at the start of the fight, he's going to get laid out. It's just going to get laid out. All Might's going to recognize that he is strong. I mean, they'll skirmish for a little bit, recognize the other's strong. All Might's not going to be taking this lying down. And because he can also throw massive air gusts with a punch, he can throw Hancock off kilter. Keep in mind, as fast as Hancock is, he's not a speedster. He doesn't just like disappear like that. He can move fast, but All Might actually should be able to keep track of him, at least enough to avoid any severe hit. Like, even if he does land like a severe gut blow or chest blow, All Might has powered through that to take down All for One. And then, United States of Smash puts him into the dirt. Oh, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But better fighting experience, stronger, and the will to keep going versus guy who just kind of doesn't want to be the hero but chooses to be. Let's be honest. That's kind of how Hancock really is. He's more durable, definitely. He's arguably faster, and he's been around longer. But it really is a Sophie's choice here of who you'd pick. I wouldn't argue against anyone who thinks Hancock should win. My money, personally, I think I would put it for All Might to win the fight. Again, though, it's going to be a hard-fought fight for both these guys, frankly. So that's my thoughts. I got All Might. Let me know why I'm wrong or why I'm right, and put it in the comments below. But until then, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.